Hey, what's up everyone? So in the last episode, we were able to see the demo of the application that we'll be working on in this entire course. And in this episode, I want us to get started with Next.js. But before we get started with the Next.js, I think it's good we understand why many developers are loving Next.js, why is it becoming so popular, and so on. And the first main reason is the flexibility in rendering. And some of these methods that Next.js provide to render the data makes it fast and better for SEO. And the first method for rendering the data in Next.js is what we call client rendering. And client rendering is the normal way of fetching data in React, where you make use of the use effect and maybe Axios to fetch the data from the server. So in this way of fetching the data, this is usually a bit slow and also a bit bad for SEO because the browser usually makes two requests and also require like two responses before you can fully see the page. So what happens is that when the page loads the first time, and this is like the first response from the server, you will see the layout and any static HTML, but you won't be able to see any data that needs to be fetched. So what the browser does is that it will download the JavaScript and request for the data. And then the backend will respond with the data or an error. In this case, I'm assuming it will respond with the data. Once it responds with the data, now that is like the second response. Now the browser will use that data to generate the HTML for the data. And then now you can like see the page or the data. So during the request, you'll initially see a loader or even a blank page if there is no loader set by the developer. Okay, so these require two responses from the server. The first one is to load the HTML and also to load the JavaScript for it to request the data. And then the second one is the response of the data, and then it can now inject the data into the HTML or generate the HTML, and now you will be able to like see the page. Okay, and that is like bad for SEO because when web crawlers visit the page, the first thing that they'll be able to see is just a blank page or the static HTML that is already there. That might be just be the nav bar, and that is not good for SEO. Okay, and also it's a bit slow because there's so much work being done by the browser. Okay, while pre-rendering on the server, this is now like the option that Next.js provides. We have what we call static generation and server-side rendering. And with static generation, this is like the recommended way of fetching data in Next.js. And what happens in static generation, the HTML is generated at build time and it is generated on the server. So this is not the browser generating the HTML, this is the server generating the HTML. So what happens the moment that you are like deploying your application, that is the moment where all the data that you need in the application will be fetched. That is the moment where all the HTML will be created and you'll deploy all the data and the HTML needed to load the pages. And once the user visits the page, they'll not be making any other requests to the server. They'll just download the HTML that already exists, and this HTML already has all the data. So that is actually very fast, okay, and very good for SEO. This is like the best option when it comes to SEO and speed, okay. But on the other hand, we also have server-side rendering, because consider an option where you need to like update the data. If you are using static generation and you want to update your data, you will need to build your application again and deploy the changes. So that is not good for a very dynamic site like Facebook or Twitter, but it is good for things like blogs, okay? But with server-side rendering, the pages are generated at request time. When you visit a page like this one, that moment is the moment where all the HTML and the JavaScript will be loaded, the data will be fetched, and you'll get only one response from the server with all the HTML. So whichever response you'll get, you won't need to make another one to fetch the data. Whatever you'll get is all the HTML already loaded, and you'll be able to see everything. So this is actually like a bit slow than static generation, but it is faster than client rendering, because this is done on the server, so there is less work on the browser, okay, and it is also way better for SEO than client rendering. So if this doesn't make sense right now, we'll be seeing examples as we proceed with the course, and hopefully everything will make sense. And then we have this incremental static regeneration. This is when you want to make your static generation to be a bit dynamic, so that when you make changes on the data, then Next.js will automatically like rebuild your application and update the data, and therefore that page will now be reusable to any other user that will be visiting without making any further request. So we will also be implementing this on our blog so that you see what it does and what it means. So this is like the main reason why Next.js is becoming so popular, and there are other reasons, obviously. Right here, there is built-in routing system, so you don't need to use your own React router or anything. There is already a built-in system which is very easy to use. And then there is support for CSS and CSS, so you won't need to do any other configuration. They are automatically done for you. The same goes for TypeScript support and image optimization. And then now down here we have other reasons like API routes. You can be able to create APIs using Next.js to serve your front end, and then there is better for performance out of the box, so you don't need to worry about this. You won't need to like do anything. There is what we call code splitting and minified code. A good example, when you load a page like this one, Next.js will only load the data for this page. It won't load the entire site. It will only load the data for this page, and that is what we call code splitting, which is very fast and good for performance. And then we have an active community around Next.js, and therefore if you have any questions, you'll always find someone out there on the web, and you can always like reach out to me on Twitter or Discord. So check for links at the description section below. And yeah, this is some of the reasons why Next.js is becoming so popular, and once you are used to them, it's actually so fun to work with Next.js. Okay, now I don't want to make this video to be so long, but we can go ahead and create our first Next.js app, and then we'll proceed from there on the next episode. So to create a Next.js app, it's so easy. I'm in nextjs.org at docs, and then getting started. So right here, you just need to run this command right here. So I'll copy this command, and if you're using TypeScript, you'll need to do this. But for now, if you're getting started, I recommend you just go with this one, and then later on you can learn TypeScript and make use of it on Next.js. So now I'll come right here, and this is the folder where I want to create our app. So I'll click on the path here on Windows, and I'll type cmd to open the command prompt or the terminal on that path. Now right here, I can just paste that command and hit enter. Once I do that, this should process. There we go. We give our application a name. I'll call it next-contentful-blog. Actually, I'll include a T right here, content. Just like that, I hit enter. And then it will install our next app. So once it's done, you can open it on your favorite code editor. In this case, I'm using VS Code. So I'll learn code and a period or a full stop or a dot and hit enter. So it will open that code on Visual Studio Code. And actually, it will open it in a folder like this. So if you need to like open that actual folder, you can cd into this name of the folder or directory. So right here, I'll paste it, so you can hit enter. Okay, but for now I can still work with this one. So let's go ahead. I'll click trust this from all, and here are my files. So this is like now the next app, and we can go through what we have here before we end the video. First of all, it's Node modules. Remember, Next.js is a React framework, so you need Node.js to work with Next.js. Okay. And then now we have right here a folder called pages, and this pages is the one that creates our routing system. So basically each file on these pages is usually a route, okay, or a different page, okay, apart from app.js right here. So index.js, this is usually the home page, and here we have API. This is now for the API routes and stuff, so you don't need to worry about that for now. We won't be using it, but in future I might create a video on the same. So we will explore this routing system on the next video. So let's just ignore it for now. Then we have the public folder. This is where you can include all your assets like images and so on. And then now right here we have styles. So Next.js supports what we call CSS modules. So you can create like a CSS file for each page right here. And then we can have different ways to style. Okay, you can have CSS and CSS, and we'll be talking about styles later on as well. And then now we have git ignore, next config, and then some package.json to track our version for our different dependencies. So we'll explore further these files as we proceed with the course. So for now, that's it for this video, and I'll be seeing you on the next one, where we will explore Next.js routing system.